Qingque, better known as Qingque, is a Quantum 4-star Edition character. Often known for her gambling mechanics, she has held a very strong presence in Star Rail's in-game. Despite the anxiety she brings to the table, her kit is pretty loaded and will allow her to be the strongest 4-star damage dealer this game will ever see. Thank you to today's sponsor, Lyssa, Goddess of Rage. Lyssa, Goddess of Rage is a turn-based AFK RPG, a genre you may be familiar with, sure, but a unique spin on the genre. Lyssa allows you to pick any of the mass amount of characters the game has to offer via recruiting them through the gacha in the many game modes that are offered to the player. This directly allows you to have some agency on your matches with not only other players, but also the PvE side of the game too. You can level up your characters and grow stronger, allowing you to eventually climb leagues and unlock more game modes that are offered. Like most AFK games, the heavy lifting is done for you if you're a busy person and rather the game play for you. For those that deeply enjoy the character designs, there is also many interactions you can have with the waifus too. Even this feature has a direct improvement on your game experience, because it certainly keeps you motivated. What are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and download Lyssa, Goddess of Rage, offered on both iOS and Android devices. I even have a special promo code for you. Anyways, thank you to Lyssa, Goddess of Rage sponsoring today's video. Qingque's history dates all the way back to the launch of Honkai Star Rail. Being one of the first characters the player receives for free, she actually ended up being one of the worst. Let me explain. 4 stars being the second highest rarity will mean that any damage dealer find themselves being compared to the highest rarity will always feel bleak in said comparison. Is the reason why Qingque couldn't hold a light to seal during the launch of Honkai Star Rail. That's the thing though, we're comparing a free character to a limited 5-star, so the easy accessibility is what gives Qingque the edge over seal on any basis. However, considering many players wanted to obtain the limited characters from a character collector or cool factor standpoint, that would be one of the reasons as to why many people would have both Qingque and Seal on their account, despite the welfare character being given early on. This was me being very generous with the comparison of performance between the two quantum damage dealers, and in pretty much every scenario there would be a clear winner. Seal didn't have very many issues in her kit, and to be quite honest, she had none, because self-sufficiency was a part of her kit. Whereas Qingque had a self-sufficiency issue ingrained into her kit. Qingque needed more skill points compared to the average damage dealer, and couple this with the gambling nature of the character, is no wonder why performance was either a hit or miss. A hit could allow you to stack your damage boosting passive further by consuming skill points, and a miss could result in you consuming every single one of your skill points while not even having an enhanced basic attack, making her the worst damage dealer in the game. This meant the players that didn't want to deal with the volatility of Qingque's kit would instead use the character that was more consistent and superior in single target scenarios, but still held her own in AoE thanks to her additional turn mechanics. Despite the probability and gamba nature of Qingque's kit, she had one thing going for her above all else. She was fun. For a lot of players, the thrill she brought to the table would make this character the most fun option in terms of damage dealers every player had in their possession. For me personally, this caused too much anxiety, so I just stuck with Seal. However, I've only been talking about worst case scenarios with Qingque, so how about her highlights as a damage dealer? Qingque had hidden mechanics in her traces that would change the gameplay of this character overall. You were able to get a J tile for free depending on the amount of times a character would go before Qingque's own turn. These J tiles could then translate into matching tiles, which would then essentially give the character an enhanced basic attack after 4 matching J tiles, furthermore allowing you to save on skill points despite Qingque being a skill point aggressor. There was also a part in Qingque's kit that would allow the character to get an additional extra skill point after her first J tile obtained from her elemental skill. Ideally, you would want a Qingque to drain your skill points while still being able to get her enhanced basic attack, because every skill point she consumed would further boost her damage during that turn, essentially allowing you to create a nuke depending on your gamba. Also wanted to iterate at this point that Qingque was still a blast character, compared to Seal, whom was a single target damage dealer. This meant that Qingque could have theoretical scenarios in which she was a better damage dealer overall. Qingque with Eidolons was a whole different beast. She could give herself an extra skill point after using her enhanced basic attack, and could deal a follow-up attack leading up to that 6th Eidolon. The follow-up attack is what contributed to Qingque's being a better theoretical damage dealer than Seal in blast scenarios. This not only required a 4th Eidolon version of Qingque, but also required good Gamba, as a chance to proc the follow-up attack was a 24% chance, so all of these circumstances would allow Qingque to be one of the best damage dealers, only on her best day, and one of the worst on her worst day. There wasn't always an in-between with this character. The second half of 1.0 would be the release of Qing, whom being in the same path as Qingque would give her one of the biggest buffs possible in the form of light cone options. Qing's light cone would buff most of Qingque's kit, including the follow-up attack from Eidolons, and give a ton of extra crit stats to the character, effectively boosting her damage further. Remember, at this point, crit damage was a luxury and a lot harder to obtain than it is now. Only Bronya had a way of giving crit damage to damage dealers. So yeah, this all took place during the first patch of the game, and I thought it was important to at least explain Qingque as a character in the process. Any buff to Seal would result in a buff to Qingque. Their kits and character designs were closely resembled early on. This meant that the release of Silverwolf would be one of the biggest buffs to Qingque. Silverwolf gave a ton of defense shred and resistance shred in her kit, which made her practically valuable for any damage dealer. Quantum characters on the other hand saw an immense boost in damage potential because of the elemental weakness implant Silverwolf had that synergized extremely well with the Genius of Brilliant Stars quantum damage bonus relic set. Silverwolf, while being a buff to Seal, was an even bigger buff to Qingque because of the difference in speeds and their potential teams. But all this only matters in present day Star Rail anyways. What did immediately prove the synergy difference was the fact that Seal had built-in quantum resistance penetration while Qingque did not, making Silverwolf and her resistance reduction all the more appealing. Silverwolf, being a skill point positive support, gave further benefits to being the best in slot teammate for Qingque, and as said before, this duo is inseparable even in present day Star Rail. This was also around the time where the double Brony hypercarry meta was a thing, so Qingque, being the character she was, would benefit immensely from these two characters. Slightly less with adult Bronya, though, and only because of Bronya's aggression on the skill point economy, but this heavily dependent on the speed, Eidolons, and light cone you had. So for the average player, Bronya Rand was sadly a no-go. Things would slightly shift however in the direction of Qingque with the release of Luocha and his skill point generating playstyle, but having a third element in the same team with Silverwolf will result in a 33% chance on average of landing that quantum weakness on the enemy, which was a huge DPS loss on Qingque if that element wasn't present on the enemy. Luocha did however signify what Qingque needed, literally skill points. There wasn't a single other character that released from this point until the second half 1.3 that benefited Qingque and her best team. Now before this, I wanted to mention that Den Heng and Baby 2 Lune's release greatly benefited Qingque, as the two had a skill point aggressive kit that were very comparable to one another. What helped one would essentially help the other, and the Memory of Chaos lineup buffs would prove so. With two greedy characters on a skill point economy, there needed to be a supportive option that could help remedy that issue. The first supportive option was in the form of a short quantum and 5-star preservation character that became a mainstay in Qingque's team. Yu Xuan, much like Silverwolf, was the biggest buff to quantum characters, giving a team-wide damage reduction, critical rate boost, skill point generating nature, and quantum elemental typing. All of these things would help not only Qingque feel like a complete character, but also gave Silverwolf more leeway to always land the quantum weakness onto the enemy, because you didn't particularly need a 4th quantum character. The enemy needed to at least be already weak to the secondary element in the team comp, which in this case being Wind because of Bronya, giving your Silverwolf the guaranteed quantum weakness elemental typing implant, and Qingque the support she needed. In the same patch would be the arrival of planar sets that benefited both Fu Xuan and Qingque, one of those giving a 10% crit damage boost to the team, the other giving free critical rate boost and a 20% damage boost to the enhanced basic attack of Qingque, raising her DPS even further. At this point, Qingque felt like an already complete character. She had a solid 5-star light cone, an amazing debuffing damage booster, and an amazing defensive option. The only thing missing from this equation was a quantum version of Bronya. If that character was to ever release, Qingque's performance would skyrocket, and the team would no longer be called Monocopium. After this patch, there wouldn't be any significant upgrades to the performance of Qingque that were worth mentioning, not even the release of Pure Fiction. With a character that gave skill points came first, then they would have been a supporter that could have allowed Qingque to partake in Pure Fiction. But considering Silverwolf wasn't as valuable in that game mode, Qingque would overall not see any play there because it heavily depended on enemies being weak to Quantum anyways. It wouldn't be until 2.0 where Qingque would meet her best in slot supporter, much like she did with the release of Silverwolf and Fu Xuan. Sparkle was the Quantum version of Bronya. She did everything better, and gave further attack buffs to Quantum characters. The best thing about Sparkle's synergy with Qingque was the skill points provided to the character. Sparkle allowed Qingque to use as many skill points as she needed, and in the process deal tons of more damage to the enemies. At this point, Qingque had everyone and everything she needed. With every character in her team being of the same element, this would essentially create the mono Quantum team composition that you know and maybe love today. Personally, being my favorite team is still a joy to use, and I don't see myself dropping these characters anytime soon. With the upcoming game mode made for hunt characters, Qingque could see even more of a usage increase because mono Quantum with Silverwolf excels at those single target scenarios, and Qingque still has a solid amount of damage output in said scenarios. At this time of my recording, there is the most unfortunate news present: the release of Jade in version 2.3. Considering Jade is the same element, path, and a 5-star rarity at that, it only means that she may end up taking the place of Qingque for utilization of Sparkle and Quantum teams. Mono Quantum is still, in all honesty, a hyper-carried team, but is exclusive to Quantum damage dealers. Who knows though? Jade may end up being completely different and having no place in Quantum teams. This may also end up being an opportunity for Qingque to have another best in slot like code. So there you have it. The history of Qingque resembles that of Seal, well sorta. Seal is a character that you can use outside of a full Quantum team and find more value in, and Qingque is currently glued to the mono Quantum team. However, this is a video that's already in the making. Thank you for watching and have a nice rest of your day.